good morning and good afternoon. And I'm not sure if we have people on Asia. A good evening to you if you were all there. My name again is Gary Silberg, recently retired as the global head of automotive for KPMG and recently appointed to the faculty as an adjunct professor at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. And I'll be teaching there this fall. Actually, as a side note, my class is titled Strategy in the Era of AI and Technological Disruption. And I can't think of a better topic like this one to have that discussion with my two esteemed colleagues who will be on this panel. Augustine Friedel, who is recently promoted associate partner at MHP, which is a Porsche company, and also Arnon Shafir, who is a vice president of business development at Upstream, and you'll hear all about that amazing startup. So before we get started, Augustine, maybe just give everybody a little bit about yourself, if you would mind, and we'll go to you next, Arnon.
Sure. So thank you very much for the introduction, Gary, and welcome all persons here on the call. So my name is Augustine. Some of you might know me from what I do on LinkedIn, from the stories that I share there about the transformation of the automotive industry. That's just my passion. The good thing is also, as Gary mentioned, I have a professional job at MHP, which is a management and IT consulting company. I'm associate partner there for the area of software-defined vehicle. And basically, we work with the whole industry, OEMs, suppliers, like all across the world on either like software topics in the cloud, on software topics, then also in the vehicle, and like also the connectivity between the vehicles, and then also like the cloud solutions. And of course, this topic that we discussed today about AI and how to leverage AI like in after sales, that's basically one of our core activities these days. Yeah, so that's basically everything about me. And with that, over to you, Arnon.
Hey, Augustine. So he's being modest, right? 52,000 followers and counting. My passion is with technology. When I joined the Upstream a couple of years back, right? The idea that we can put AI into the automotive world was fascinating to me. So born and raised in Startup Nation, really happy to be here. And Gary, why don't you take it away and we'll try to answer some of those exciting topics.
All right, we've got a lot to talk about. And in the end, we should have hopefully some time to take some Q&A. I'm going to throw out some poll questions. So people, please, we have 3 poll questions that we'll get your opinions on. So don't be shy. We really like it to be interactive. So let me frame it for everybody. When everyone thinks of the world quality or after sales quality, certainly my brain goes to listening to my former client's earnings call in the billions with a B dollars or euros of earnings hits due to these quality problems. This is a massive, massive issue within the industry. Not only does it mean recalls, but the customer experience, the customer buying decision is dramatically impacted on this. So I think we would all agree that that is a big issue for the industry. Now, let me give you the bad news first. Unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse and potentially a lot worse before it gets better. But we do have a silver lining, which we're going to talk about on this call. So I'm a little concerned. And the reason I am concerned is the word complexity. I think we are on the cusp of having more complexity than the industry knows what to deal with, especially as it relates to quality. Let's do a quick thought experiment. I think in 2015, the #1 selling car or close to it in the world was a Toyota Corolla. So everybody kind of close your eyes. Imagine, if you could, a Toyota Corolla from 2015. And last year in 2014, the #1 selling car in the world was actually the Model Y. So just within 9-10 years, think about the difference in technology between these #1 selling vehicles. It's massive. If you were to go to 2020, where these cars are under typically warranty or could be, a 2020 car, you pick your favorite car, your favorite Porsche or your favorite, you name it, VW car, compare that to a 2025, unbelievable difference between the number of chipsets within the car, the connected vehicle, the electrical architecture. And I will argue from 2025 to 2030, you ain't seen nothing yet, and probably to 2035. What do I mean by that? I mean, we had initially essentially one powertrain. It was combustion powertrain. Now there was a big idea that EVs were going to take over the world, and they are hopefully eventually, or maybe, but certainly not as quickly as people thought. So you have a car park that is starting to be mixed with EVs. Hybrids have started to take off, and you have combustion engines. So there is a mosaic of powertrains. And within that mosaic, you have a mosaic of chipsets, suppliers, software. You mix all this up together, and I'm telling you, things are going to get very, very complex, and your organizations better be ready. So that's the bad news. Now, the good news is what we're going to talk about today, and hopefully help people think about how to solve this complexity issue, which I think is massive, and that is through artificial intelligence, machine learning. I think we are on the cusp to be able to use new technology, especially as the car is connected, to help us going forward. So let me there. That to me is the framework of our discussion. And I want to ask a poll question for people, and we'll ask our first question to see where you all stand with all this. So if we could put the poll question up, Megan, and I'll read it to everybody slowly. Have you already started implementing artificial intelligence or machine learning into your after-sales quality processes? Not yet, just getting started, or you're scaling AI and ML use cases already? Let me know what you think. And I'm going to try to see if I can find this. If not, maybe Arnon, you can tell me what the results are here, or
I say they're still coming in.
you're still okay.
Yeah.
Do you see the results, Arnon?
I do. If you
Okay.
open your chat bubble,
Yeah.
right, I could tell that almost 60% are saying not yet, 23% just getting started, and 17% thus far are scaling with AI and ML use cases. That's about right. I think what we've been hearing over the last couple of years.
That's excellent, Arnon. And this is a great framework for this discussion. So the first section, hopefully everybody agrees or has a good framework of what we're talking about. So the first area I want to discuss with both of you, and I want to bring you in the conversation, is what we frame as from reactive to proactive, and how that's imperative now. Now, certainly, I believe Europe works the same way as the United States and Asia to the most part. Historically, you have a car, you drive it, you have a problem, you bought it from the dealer, you go back to the dealer, you say, I have a problem. The dealer looks at it, they try to figure it out, and it is very reactive. Eventually, it goes back to the OEM. That is certainly a general reactive format for the industry for many years. That is changing. And maybe, I think with the technology in the car, the diagnostics. So over to you, Augustine. First question, how do modern vehicles with the data architecture in it, are they enabling better access to actual vehicle signals than they were before? And give us a framework of how to think about that.
Yeah. So let's also frame it a bit in the context that you just mentioned in your introduction. Of course, if you look there on the technology and architecture side, the modern vehicles could be a game changer to basically collect and access the data. Yeah? So the relevant data points from the different, let's say, sensors, from the different hardware parts, but also from the software could be captured based on then also connectivity between the vehicles and the cloud. The data could be transferred from the vehicle to the cloud or enterprise IT environment, then basically in real time. This is basically then what we see on the technology side, but still we need to keep in mind that this is an ideal scenario. So you mentioned it quite well, Gary, that there's like a hyper complexity then not only for the customer side, then also for the OEM side, basically to manage it. Yeah, so we need to acknowledge that there are like different vehicle platforms with different setups for data. We need then also to acknowledge that they want to roll out the different platforms and architectures across different markets. Yeah, so you basically then also need to capture that or keep that in mind. And then also you can go on and can go on and on with then also telematic solutions, and then maybe also different cloud setups and so on. And this is basically just the complexity that the OEMs need to deal with then on the technology side, and then what's very relevant as well, and we see it also a bit here then in the results of the poll, you need to also see, is your organization ready to use the new tools that you have with the architecture, the technology enablers, connectivity, data, to make then something out of that. Yeah, and I think this is basically then also one of the triggers that maybe the people here in the call and also beyond should work on to get basically from this close to 60% not yet scaling of AI to like a majority for like scaling AI and machine learning use cases. Yeah, so they're basically to close the loop. Then there it could be a game changer, but it's not the final solution. Yeah, so the modern vehicle and data architectures, they're just one part of the equation. You really need to think about then like end to end to then also leverage that, especially then also linked to AI and machine learning use cases.
No, I think those are excellent points. And as I was listening to you talk, I was thinking about all the different operating systems that OEMs are starting to even develop internally and then externally, and even the, between the internal, the external, and you have, Apple CarPlay, and you have Google Auto, and you have the Chinese version. I mean, it is mind-boggling, the data and the structure in that. But maybe, Arnaud, back to you. Can you talk about, maybe give us some real world examples, what you're seeing right now, and bring this to the team of how people are actually using connected vehicle data?
Yeah, so as an ex-Amazonian, I'm guilty of being customer obsessed. So whenever we talked with OEMs, and we've been talking to tens of them over the last 3 years, specifically around that topic of after sales quality monitoring and detection and the challenges, and we keep dive deep into the area of what was the customer experiencing. So if I take that from one of those examples, drivers of hybrid or NEVs reported sudden and uncommanded slowdown. So you're driving, all of a sudden you're in traffic light, powered loss. So loss of acceleration, not a great experience, not a great customer experience. Sometimes it came out with a MIL, right? The check engine warning light. And some of them actually going, like Gary, you mentioned, to the dealer to fix the issue, the brave ones, or the ones who got really worried. The initial treatment was either an inverter cooling system flushing or a water pump replacement. But to those few brave men and women, it only provided a temporary relief. Now, to those in the audience who come from the field, right? Field investigation is tricky. It's more of an art, right? And it's been around for the past 20, 30 years. But the root cause in this case, right, remained unresolved. And the repeating no defect found or wrong root cause analysis results in customer dissatisfaction. So if you think about the customer experience, this is a mind-boggling, because it's an intermittent electrical connection in the inverter of the powertrain. And it led to abnormal thermal loading and disrupted torque delivery. So you're basically trying to accelerate and you can't. But the issue, and this is, I guess, the main topic, the issue could have been detected earlier by connected vehicle data. So we all heard about DTC monitoring, DTC analytics, DTC anomaly detection. That is good, but now in the last couple of years, after sales team are getting to the point where DTC's monitoring is not enough. In this case, yes, there was a DTC which came after the fact, but if you would monitor the thermal pattern of the powertrain inverter, you would see a gradual incline of the temperature, right? Going, instead of the 25 or 50 Celsius, which is 100, Fahrenheit, gradually going into 196 Fahrenheit or 90%. Now that's bad, right? But if you cross-reference those two, you can actually say Houston or Manchester, we have a problem, or Munich, right? But once the initial claims and repair orders start to rack up, the analysis correlated that real-time vehicle data with the relevant claims into the right root cause. But I think what we're seeing is a shift, a mental shift going, or a shift left, right, going into an early detection. So pre-claim, pre-repair order, even before the customer starts noticing the issue. And if I look back, right, it's 2025, and it's funny because the oldest problem, right, dating back to maybe Ford's time, but I'm talking about Henry, right? The 12-volt battery, right? An issue which you might say it's already been resolved, and still, right? Not too long ago, two separate OEMs dealing with the same issue, right? And the symptoms, right? The symptoms that, again, customer-facing symptoms, right? Hard to ignite, vehicle experiencing battery outage, and many, I'm talking about thousands of 12-volt battery units being replaced. However,
so wait, let me pause for a second.
Yeah,
so you're saying that the 12-volt battery with two of your customers, or at least one, wasn't working, and no one knew why. Is that what the issue was?
So this was the hypothesis of many of the dealers, which is, if you look at the symptoms, right? Someone sneezes, right? He might get the fever, right? What is it? Pneumonia, or is it just him sleeping with the AC on, right? So the symptoms were very similar to a 12-volt battery issues. Many of those cases were replaced, but again, looking back at the data and looking at what we'll talk about later as a digital signature of those issues, or looking at it from a digital forensic, and rather than looking at the failed component, you look at the data, then you could have clearly seen that even the first vehicles that came into the shop, right? If you monitor, even before they came, even before the customer notices the issue, if you monitor the minimum 12-volt battery during the rides of those vehicles, you could clearly see a steady decrease, while the alternator is supposed to charge those poor guys. So any engineer in the audience, right, would immediately say it's the alternator, stupid, and you're right. So it wasn't the 12-volt battery, although many of them were replaced. It was the component, the alternator in this case. And again, we're talking about thousands, but I'm going to do a quick spoiler, Gary, if you allow me. Next week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to release a new report about quality. And the sneak peek, I'm not going to do a spoiler, but the analysis in this report shows that since 2020, almost 70%, right? 70% of all recalls, right? Those are more severe than the warranty that we're talking about. Recalls, and nearly 90% of EV recalls could have been detected earlier through connected vehicle data and AI. And that is mind-boggling. I'm talking about 70% of ICE and 90% of EV, which is, again, a big title. Anyway, I'll pause here.
No, I think it's important, the two cases that you listed. One, you have an issue with the battery where people think it's that. It could have been another one I heard about from you before about people pinging the battery with their API that had nothing to do even with the alternator. But and in this case, and then even when the acceleration, I mean, it's as a consumer now, I can just tell you, and all of us are consumers of these vehicles, when the light goes on or something happens, there is no way for us to understand what's going on because these are supercomputers on wheels. There's just no way. And I think the analogy I have given to my clients over the years is the Apple Genius Bar. I always said that the car is going to be like going to the Apple Genius Bar, and you're going to have to bring you bring your phone in. You need the Genius kids because of the complexity. But quite frankly, this is simple compared to a car because a car has 1,000 of these things, right? So I really believe in this idea of complexity. And the only way to figure that out is through data and through AI. I think, Arnon, you're making the case very strongly in terms of that. So those are two excellent examples. Let's shift into another area because I think everybody everybody will agree that the complexity and try and solve it. So how do you take AI and make it an engine that is scalable and allow people to do root cause analysis like you were just doing? And maybe Augustine, you've been doing a lot of this analysis with your customers. Can you talk to us what's the most promising in the field for root cause analysis, known, post claims, recurring, unknown, pre-claim, you name it. I'll hand you the floor.
Yeah, maybe let's put there also some focus on a different area. Yeah? So Arnon, you mentioned quite well that okay, you can do a lot with data and you can recognize then also most of the issues already before it occurs then on the like on the customer side. Yeah, so the biggest challenge on this journey is what we see then basically. Yeah, so before you deep dive then more like the technical aspects is then get the organization ready. Yeah, so basically this access to data, it's nothing new. Yeah, we have connected vehicles since more than a decade. We get a lot of data out of the vehicles and so on. And but the issue is then they're okay to have their basically this mindset shift like on the engineering part or then also like in the corporate organization. Yeah, so to really use then like the data, combine it with the tools that are available. Let's call it AI or machine learning, but also then other techniques basically to do the work and identify the issues and like as you said, the digital signature, right, Anon? Basically before you have then the issue on the customer side. Yeah, and I think this is the biggest challenge we are facing, and we see then there with the when we are working with the organization on root cause analysis. It's often we love to talk about the technology, the data, and then basically how to combine both. But this is, you have there the tools available from upstream and also other partners and so on. But the real game changer is then also if you get your organization ready to then utilize the tools and the data.
So talk about that. Can I probe that a little bit more? Because obviously with your background and who you're working with, you don't have to name the organizations if you don't want to, but give us an idea of how people are organizing now, differences, similarities. What are you starting to see? Or are people actually proactively changing their organization?
No, it's not like changing organization. It's always like a big challenge. Yeah, so you can also argue, is it even possible to change an organization? What we see then often there is also that they try to build like, let's say, new units. Yeah, so putting then the people and the experts with the right mindset in place to basically that they have the thinking that probably Anon, you mentioned you're like you worked for Amazon before. Yeah, so maybe to bring them in also experts from like other industries that are more used to have this data-driven like working model. To bring these in then and try to either have then this kind of like separated team or then also the other way that we see, and there's no black and white or no right and wrong, have then this kind of like integrated teams. Yeah, so where we have then these and the experts or the people with the right mindset or the new mindset that you need as like part of your existing teams integrate in there and basically drive then their the topics forward. Yeah, so these are basically the two ways that we see then, and when we look then in the industry, you see it at OEMs, you see it then also at different suppliers. And of course, they need then to be like a strong alignment again with these teams, and then like the technical experts, yeah, on then like the ones that basically have access to the cloud infrastructure, also vehicle infrastructure, but then also to who are then basically if we loop in AI, yeah, so basically who can then also decide what is the best setup on like AI models, AI infrastructure, how to then fine tune maybe then also the AI models. To do then or to be equipped then for this root cause analysis. But it's in a nutshell, it's super important to think there beyond like the technology enablers and think they're also in like team and organization and mindset direction.
I think that's a hugely important point. Well, I won't name one of my prior clients but they had a whole strategic project in this
Mm.
area of how to set up the organization. They developed first it was data is what they called it. And they called it initially it was data and therefore and then afterwards the analytics of that data. So that's how they originally set it up. And my other clients were doing that too, and where and why and how they combined teams and didn't. And one team just walled them off separately. Which I think is not so great because if they're separated, at least this has been my experience, they'll come up with the secret, oh my God, look what I found, but they don't talk to engineering, they don't talk to after sales, they want to be the heroes or, and you get siloed in these big organizations. Have you seen that, Augustine? Have you seen this silo issue?
I have seen that as well. Yeah. So I'm there also more like a fan of this integrated approach, because if you have there like a separated team, maybe you can do that for like a POC. But I mean, if you really want to have like a big impact, it should be integrated, and you need to then also take the engineers like with you on the journey. And then maybe to put there another like vector or other direction and also into the discussion is, okay, do you run this basically then as a like very centrally? Yeah. So what we see then also, okay, there we have then customers in the supplier and OEM sector said, okay, like everything linked to then like data, AI, root cause analysis need to be steered from like a central corporate IT team versus, okay, the other option, let's give more responsibility and more decision power, let's say, to the more like expert domain or like domain expert teams, and let them figure out basically maybe in a framework or like with guardrails what would be the best solution on technology, on like speed, on then maybe infrastructure, on like trainings and so on. Yeah. So and there that's I think also like one of the very important discussions the different people here in the team should maybe have within the organizations. Yeah. Should this be like centralized, steered and governed, or then there also like more power to like the smaller teams which come up then with maybe more tailored solutions and have then like faster impacts, maybe then also like better business cases, faster ROI and so on. Yeah, so that's maybe like a second dimension, another dimension of the discussion.
Maybe it's sparked the thought. So obviously, whenever there's innovation and technology, you'll find me there. We're being very curious, and I think over the last 3 years, with agentic AI and advanced ML and supervised machine learning models that have been introduced to many of those teams, we've seen many experiments. So you would see separated POCs, proof of values being born. I'll give just, very simple examples, anywhere between LLMs trying to categorize new claims into groups, or trying to extract texts from thousands of, customer comments and put that into a new project, all the way to advanced supervised model that would do feature engineering and at the end of the day would expedite root cause analysis. I think that's one of the key areas, right? There's no shortage of experimenting, but board level meetings, and we're fortunate at Upstream to have investors coming from the industry. So we hear board level meetings saying, like, Gary, you said top priority for 2025, reduce warranty and recall costs. Second priority, experiment with AI is nice. Now put it into work. So I think that there are two main areas where we see now the hyper growth, right? Both in a better understanding of known issues, so post claims, recurring issues, countermeasure effectiveness, but also, like you said, pre-claim or the unknown. So it's a separation between known issues and unknown issues. And first, there's the fundamental challenge, right? Not our focus today, but Augustine, you probably know it all too well. The big data, 50 gigabytes of data for a non-SDV, right? We're talking about regular vehicles, sending that all that data, telematics data on a daily basis. It's a massive big data challenge, petabytes of data. AI is definitely, helping those teams to leverage at this core challenge. But connected vehicle data can provide insights beyond, which is available through ROs and claims and dealerships and DTC analytics, right? Like we mentioned. So the shift from reactive to proactive using connected vehicle data, dovetailing both diagnostics data, dealership data, but also manufacturing data. So if a car went out of the assembly line, it would probably have better probability of getting into the dealer than a car that went out, all set. But there are three fundamental layers, right? The data layer, and then on top of it, right, there's what we call the digital twin, right? So it's the abstraction layer. If remind me, Gary, I did ask you this question, but what car do you drive at the moment? One of them.
Oh, you're going to embarrass me because I never liked that question but I'm now retired, so as a professor I can say. So I have two cars. I have one is a Tesla Model X and a Ford Bronco. So combustion and EV. So Perfect. There you go. And they're completely different, trust me, and they drive differently.
So the fact that you're driving one of those, right, on the weekend, you're probably driving that different. And it doesn't matter, right, if you're driving at 50 miles per hour down 101, right, in California, or if you're doing 120 kilometers per hour on the Munich Autobahn, every single vehicle that is out there has been monitored, right, over the last 10 years. So the TCUs are getting that data, how fast, where, location, right, what temperature, what is the transmission oil temperature, and what is the coolant temperature, but also a lot of data, which is basically creating that single source of truth, which we call the live digital twin. So unlike other digital twins, which is manufacturing and design and R&D, there's a single source of truth, a live digital twin for Gary's vehicle, for Augustin's vehicle, even for my girlfriend's vehicle, right? They all drive now, and they combine both the DTCs and the sensorial data and the contextual data and the manufacturing data and the bill of material and the software version of the ECU or the ADAS lane keep assist camera. That's a lot. And that creates that single source of truth in the abstraction level of a single car, a group of cars. You mentioned the Bronco or the Tesla, so a fleet or group of cars, and then looking at it from a different perspective, the component of all the vehicles. So the ADAS component might be relevant for multiple vehicles, even if it's in 3 MIS or in 6 MIS. That component is driven now in 1 or 2 million vehicles. How do you monitor that? And only once you've established the data plane and the abstraction layer of a digital twin, then I think the next layer comes handy, right? AI and ML. Whether you use agentic AI or traditional AI or supervised machine learning or anomaly detection, it really needs to have those fundamental layers so that when you go ahead and create the next level of abstraction, right? It's a bit more complex, bear with me, right? We call it the digital signature, right? Which is a new concept, but it's obviously AI and ML in the background, but it's a manifestation of a quality issue. So how is the quality issue manifested, right? We mentioned earlier on, right? Loss of power, a certain DTC or a group of them, an increase in coolant temperature or a decrease in torque. All of those comprise, what we call digital signature, which then allows the OEM to look at that digital signature and say, aha, Sherlock, right? By the way, I love that example. So pause me whenever I'm blurbing too much.
But no, but I think it's important that, this is kind of the genius of your software platform, is your software platform creates, which I've seen, that these digital twins of VIN numbers, vehicle identification number, of my vehicle, your vehicle, of every one of our, that's the single source of truth on the vehicle forever, right? You can use that, and then you can use that as the basis of the digital signature to figure out throughout the organization. That concept, when I first heard it, I was like, okay, I understand. I think that's a genius way of approaching it, because if you can amalgamate those through AI, was what you're talking about. This is allow you to get the detection earlier in the process. What's your thoughts on that, Augustine? Have you that concept of the digital twin and one source of truth? Do you like that, and what has been your experience?
Yeah. I think that's a big like a tool that the whole industry could use to make the right decisions. And there I would like to add like a discussion that we see then also today in the industry is basically, Arnon, what you described is having all the data and the digital twin basically in the cloud. Yeah. So, and you mentioned at the beginning of your answer that there's like gigabytes of data that is collected by an SDV. So what we then also working on with the industry and what we see then there's how could you basically set up also like an infrastructure in the vehicle to just send the relevant data to the cloud. Yeah. And there again, also how could you leverage AI models in the vehicle, yeah, at the edge, like then very small ones, because we all know that there's never enough compute power in the car and in the vehicles. But how could you basically leverage then different tools and technologies to decide what is the relevant data that should be then sent to the cloud for like the digital twins and in the different areas, yeah, linked to sensor data, but also linked to maybe software usage, linked to maybe customer feedback that you might get through like all the new interfaces, let's say AI voice assistants and so on. Then also how to enable then the vehicles to detect anomalies in the data that they're collecting, and then switching maybe it on that you send this data to the cloud, which you haven't sent to the cloud before because there was no issue. Yeah. So adding then there not only this kind of like intelligence layer in the cloud is a big topic where we work with the industry on, and where we then also leverage solutions like Upstream and others, but also have then there also this kind of like counterpart then in the vehicle to decide, okay, what is then the relevant data that should be then used to enhance the digital twin, and then also address with that then also this kind of like communication challenge. Yeah. So or like if you think then about different regions in like Europe, where we have then in Germany where I am often not the best connectivity. Yeah. So what is then like also the timing, when do you send the data from the vehicle to the cloud,
right,
and so on. Yeah. So these are then there may be two more aspects that are important in this challenge, and that's like again like adding to what you mentioned at the beginning, Gary. It's not like always like a single solution and it's simple. Yeah, you need to basically cover the whole complexity of the value chain in different regions.
Yeah, you're talking about data providers, all the sensor suites. I mean,
yeah,
it's billions of data per second. I'll give you one. We'll go to our last. We have one more section, and then we'll open it up. But I want to give you a thought. Just I can tell you, since Arnon made me say one of my cars. So, and the Tesla, Elon Musk has been teasing, which is gonna, I'm sure, come. I don't know when, but in the next probably 3, 4, 5, 6 months, Grok AI. So they have the AI, which is the similar as the Chat GPT or Perplexity, if you're familiar with the AI LLMs. But they're going to do an over-the-air update with Grok in the Tesla. Now think about that for a second. And that will be integrated into the Tesla operating system, kind of like Apple has it in their phone, versus if you're Volkswagen or whoever you are and you're working with, OpenAI, it will be on top of, but not integrated in the operating system. And so what you'll be able to do when you talk to your car and interrogate, I mean, I think we're on the cusp of some unbelievable opportunities with AI through those type of things. So we don't have to talk about that, but I wanted all of our listeners out there to realize that is definitely coming in the next, several years, where you'll have the AI LLM within your vehicle, and some of them will be integrated to different levels within the vehicle. I'm sure that little company called Google that makes Android Auto and all that, they're going to want an Apple. I mean, there's a whole host of, and you got Carriot, and you got, there's a whole host of players that makes this complexity we talked about earlier just getting started. But I'll put that aside. Maybe we'll have another whole webinar on that. Last topic. So this is all sexy and cool and fun, but at the end of the day, you've got to have feedback loops. It can't be just some group finding this. You got to be able to go back into the organization, to engineering, to field design, customer service, supplier relationship. You got to get your suppliers involved. How do we bring this whole process all the way back so we have a feedback loop so this just gets better and better and better? I'll open it up to both of you, whoever wants to take that question.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I think that one important point is to have then access and ownership of the relevant data. So what we see then there, that you have maybe like relationship between OEMs and suppliers, and then the suppliers delivering parts, let's say cameras or like sensors to like for in-cabin monitoring and so on. But the agreement does not allow the OEM basically to use this data. Yeah, so or like in just certain circumstances and so on. And that's basically like very bad if you want to leverage the data then for like the improvements that you mentioned, like either in design, engineering, and doing then maybe software updates, also managing your suppliers and so on. Yeah, so I think this is key. Yeah, to basically have access to the data and then also have the allowance to use the data for then like the different loops and the different processes within your organization, and then also use the data to basically improve what is like the overall goal, the customer experience. And then I can't stress it enough, is basically again like the cultural challenge. Yeah, so one example then here. Yeah, so it's I got an also a call from a customer in the automotive space that wanted to do a workshop basically where they asked me, okay, Augustine, tell me what are the features and functions I should keep in my infotainment system, yeah, based on your experience, based on your knowledge. Yeah, and we can go on with like new business ideas as well. Yeah, there was a different customer, but they also said, and okay guys, that's the wrong approach. Yeah, so I'm not the person who should tell you what to put there in front of the customer based on my experience and based on my thinking that I have from like working with different clients and following the industry in China and the US very closely. Yeah, so you have basically access to the data. You know basically from your vehicles and from your customers what they're interested in, what they're using day to day. Yeah, so you definitely need to change your approach how to work. Yeah, so and I think this is basically one of the biggest challenges the industry is facing today, to think, and we discussed about it a couple of times today already, to basically think with like customer first and data first. And then if you have that and you have access to the right data, if you have then there also the right tools in place and processes so that the people have then access to the data and most importantly the relevant data. Yeah, so basically you need to strip it then down to the data that's relevant for the different departments and so on. You can do it with your systems or leverage an AI again, so that one of the developers for infotainment or for improving some of the features and functions or doing this anomaly detection just has access to the data that's relevant for them, instead of getting like the big pool and then they need to figure out on their own what to do with that. Yeah, so I think this is then the last part. Yeah, so have access to the data, have the right mindset, and then also customer first thinking, and then have there basically the input sources ready, and then also the tool chain for like the colleagues and experts that need to work with that, and then also feed this tool chain then with the data that's relevant for them, not to overload them or basically to distract them from what's maybe not in focus and what is not their area. And then you get also like the trust from these from the colleagues, because they see then the real value. If you say then, yeah, okay, great, that's basically all the data that we have of the vehicle, figure out yourself what is relevant for you, then they say, oh, it's adding more work on my desk. Yeah, so I only do that if I really know, okay, it's relevant for me and I can do my job better than I've done it before.
Yeah.
That's
to dovetail to what Augustine was saying, I'll keep it short. I think there are two elements on top of everything we talked about. First of all, let's admit it, the life of an after-sales field investigation engineer is becoming more complex, like you said, Gary, by the minute. So I like to think of it as a CIS episode. That's my favorite, right? It's forensic evidence. It's being able to identify who's the suspect and then get to the killer, right? Before he makes his next killing, God forbid. But it's really become an art because the usual suspects, right, might surface and give you false identification, but being able to shift, right, and it's a mental shift, like you said, Gary, being able to shift from following the component to following the data, and then starting to develop trust with large language models, with machine learning supervised models, and making friends with them so that they become your ally rather than your opponent. What can they do to help you get your job done earlier? What can they do to get to the next level of analysis? What can they do to help you improve the velocity of identifying things even before the customer? So that's one thing. I think that the other element is really what I call maybe a mental shift. It's allowing more people, right, from those different silos to say, hey, this is what we're experiencing in the field. And this is the technical report that I'm filing, but hey, this is my hypothesis. I know that in manufacturing and in R&D and in product design, you guys don't necessarily trust, that data approach, and you want me to go ahead and replicate this issue with, 2 or 3 and wait for 20 or 30 claims. But here's a new approach when I can show you forensic analytics and follow the data and say, according to the data and the machine learning and the AI and the agentic AI, here is my hypothesis. And being able to travel and earn trust internally with other teams, I think that this is a dramatic digital transformation way beyond everything that we've seen, because if you can bring in people from R&D, bring people who are task force 3 mission, have this urge to really go out to the field and touch the vehicles and being able to carry them over with the excitement and with the potential, I think it will create a huge shift, right, in the after sales and in quality in general, saving not only billions of dollars per year. We have a figure of $150 billion potential savings in 1 year, but that's the total spend, right? But if you think about 5% of that or 10% of that, that's $14-15 billion a year. I think that there's another shift, right? When car become more complex, safety becomes issues. You want to tackle things faster and smoother and be transparent and constantly communicate with your other teams, with the customer, etc.
That's I'll make one last comment. I'll take I think I'll summarize what I think a couple points are, then we'll open it up to the group. But both of you, I think, nailed it, in my opinion, of the future. Augustine, that your idea of it's data first and then set up the organization to follow the data and bring that to, it's a mindset change. It's an organizational mindset. And Arnon, the type of person and the technology and the forensics and figuring it out and bringing different data groups in, and that to me, the combination of these two, what you both said, will determine the winners and the losers. Because if you're able to combine both of what you both said with the complexity that you're having and identify these things earlier, you're going to be saving billions of dollars. Or say it another way, if you don't do it, you're going to have billion-dollar issues all the time. You're going to be always behind, and it's going to be too late. It's going to be too complex if you don't do it. So to me, it's very exciting. That's why I have a class on this topic. So if anybody wants to audit my class, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I think it's very exciting that this is the future of our industry, and you've got to use these tools in organizational structures. In my view, in order to be the winners in this industry. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. All right, with that, let's open up.
Maybe one last comment there, if you allow,
please.
Gary. I think if we then also talk about AI, yeah, so it feels like we are super early then there in the progress, and it's maybe it's like still day one, yeah. So I think what our recommendation is, and also always to the customers we work with, stay there alerted, yeah, stay hungry, yeah. So I mean, there's so much let's say movement in the industry. Don't make the mistake that you have maybe done in the past, that you decide for one solution and then you think, okay, that's alive for the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So I think there you also need to have this kind of like scouting and always evaluating mindset where you think, okay, is this what I have set up yesterday still the best solution that I have today? Or is there then maybe also like a better one? And how could I implement that to then do basically like the whole work that I do more efficiently and maybe like faster and with less cost. Yeah, so I think this kind of like being alerted or stay alerted and always look for, okay, is there something better to implement? That's very important as well. Don't do the mistakes that you think, okay, you can decide it now once and then it's set for the next decade.
Excellent. All right, let's open it up for questions. So, Maribel, you want to read one, or Megan, you want to?
Yes, indeed. I'll just remind our listeners that if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and type it into the Q&A box. We have received quite a few in advance of the session, so I'll start with some of those while we wait for any additional ones to flow in. So someone had asked, what do you see as the future of the aftermarket in the industry when it comes to servicing, repairs, and recalibrations?
I'll leave it up to Arnon or Augustine. You want to take that, or? I'll take it.
Go for it, Gary.
I'll take that one. This is one of the most profitable parts of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
It is by far, and it's the dirty little secret, or maybe it's not a secret, but people make a lot of money, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, and people are fighting to keep this power in the aftermarket. The dealers want it. You have all this data here within the vehicle. The customer has some say in all this. So I think it's undefined, actually, who ultimately this going forward. If you buy your car direct from a new OEM, like I'll use Tesla again, or if it's a Rivian, or if you're buying or if you buy direct and you have the relationship with the OEM, I think that aftermarket relationship will be different versus if you have your dealer and the historical network and then the aftermarket suppliers. So I think it's up for grabs, in my opinion.
Maybe to add there, I think it's also getting more interesting. Yeah? So you hear them probably that there's less, let's say, revenue potential because of the shift for like to BEVs and because they're like less parts, etc. Yeah. So, but you can also think in a different direction. We are adding more, let's say, technology systems like ADAS, more sensors. Yeah. So if you think about your windshield now and like everything that's integrated there, if you think about, okay, someone needs to replace that, then of course you have like the BOM for like the hardware replacement, but then also like recalibration for like all the sensors and ensuring that your other systems are like still up and running and work how you would like to have them to work. Yeah, so I think that also new opportunities with the shift to software-defined vehicles, and then maybe to the, let's say, direct to consumer relationship. So what we have seen here, at least in Europe, is the shift to, let's say, agent models, yeah, so agency models where the OEMs wanted to set up agencies, and then there was the fear of dealers that they will take away then also like the after sales and service business, or have like at least an impact of that. But I think there also what we see, it's a kind of reverse. Yeah, so there you might have heard it that like Stellantis and also Ford and then also like Volkswagen, they basically reversed the plan in there and focus more on the dealer-based business models. So there, yeah, I think it's as you mentioned, Gary, it's very dynamic. Let's see how this will end up and who will have like a major play.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fight going forward and see how it plays.
Yeah.
By the way, I couldn't agree more. there's an expression we say in America when you hit somebody in the back of the car, we call it a love tap. It's just we call it it's a funny expression when the car behind you hits you. Well, if you hit somebody's car today and give them a little love tap, with all the cameras and the sensors on the car, that little accident could be in the thousands of dollars or euros because of what you talked about. So this is very complex, and I think the dollars are going to be huge. We have time for one more question. Let's just do one more and then we'll call it. Megan, you want to do one more?
Yep, of course. I'm trying to look through all the ones that have come through. How do OEMs manage and use tons of runtime data generated by SDVs post-sale for quality enhancement?
Arnon, you take that one. You want to?
Actually, SDV is definitely in Augustine's realm.
All right, SDV. I was trying to bring you in, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I'll give you.
Yeah, I think we answered it also a bit during our discussion. I think first is, okay, you need to have the infrastructure in the vehicle to define what you send then basically to the cloud, and have there also kind of a dynamic setup, so that you then also are able to identify anomalies or then issues that occur in the vehicle, and then basically then that's what we discussed in there in the call. You send it to the cloud. You have then your cloud environment. Some of them call it then digital twin, and basically you will leverage then the digital twin in the different directions to improve then your products and feed your processes.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, I think what Augustine mentioned, right? We see a process where the smarts, right, that currently may rely in the minds, right, of the 20 or 30 years of experience of engineers would be translated to the models, and then the models, when they rely on vast amounts of data currently in the cloud, would then gradually be migrated to the edge. So you'll keep an agent there that would say, hey, now I identify an anomaly. Now I need to open the plug and transmit more data rather than transmit all data all day long. And that is a transformation that we're seeing over the last couple of years. We haven't seen the end of it yet, but we definitely see that transition happening.
All right, both of you were brilliant. Thank you very much. I learned a lot listening. Hopefully everybody has, digital twins, digital signature, think data. This AI is something coming, and that organizational structure and how you have that mindset and go forward is going to be critical. We're in a very exciting time, everybody, but if you don't get this right, you're going to be in big, big trouble because of the complexity. Embrace it, and I think you'll be great. So thank you for really taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.